Oh, it happened again. I saw him. He, he was in my dreams. I heard his voice. And that scream. That, that godforsaken scream. I hear it every day. Every single day. Oh, I wish I could forget. That blood curdling scream. He's my curse. He's my demon. And he requires a sacrifice. There is only one thing I can do.
Here comes Speed Racer. He's 60 minutes on wheel.
Before I start this review, I should preface that me and Speed, we've got history. You see, we go back, all the way back to my days in elementary school. I don't quite remember how I originally got into Speed Racer. All that I do remember was I was just a huge fan of it. It was around the time that the live action film came out, which I saw in the theaters. That probably might be it. I also used to watch this god awful spin off series called Speed Racer The Next Generation, which is on Nickelodeon. I had a ton of Speed Racer shit back then. I mean, tons. I had toy model Mach 5, I had the Mach 6, I had this LCD game which I had no idea how to play. I had the live action movie on DVD. I even had a novelization of the first episode of the original anime called The Great Plan that I got at a Scholastic Book Fair. Speaking of the anime, at my 10th birthday I got this DVD of the first 11 episodes of the original Speed Racer anime, making this not just the first anime I ever saw, but the first anime I ever owned. But as time went on, I grew out of Speed Racer. I didn't really think about it again until my freshman year of high school. I was at a Half Price Books and I saw this on the shelf for 20 bones. This would become the first manga I ever owned. My days of being a huge Speed Racer fan were long behind me, and I think it's time I lay this beast to rest and fairly review Mach GoGoGo by Tatsuo Toshida, known in the West as Speed Racer. So if you were like me, you probably didn't know that Speed Racer was originally a manga. You're probably more familiar with the anime for its interesting reasons. It's become the go-to series to parody when making fun of anime, with its horrible voice acting, choppy, frantic animation, and it's just overall strangeness, gaining it a sort of infamy in the West in recent years, though it was a huge hit when it originally came out in the US. But that's not what the focus of this video is. The manga is titled Mach GoGoGo. It began serialization in June of 1966 in Shonen Book, and continued until May of 1968. Now, Shonen Book is an interesting footnote in the history of manga, because in 1968 the publisher of Shonen Book, Soedisha, folded to make way for their new publication, a little title that you might have heard before called Weekly Shonen Jump. They've put out a couple big series in the past. Now, the creator of Mach GoGoGo is Tatsuo Toshida, and he is an artist that has quite the legacy. Yoshida was born March 6, 1932 in Kyoto, Japan. After the war, Yoshida became fascinated with Superman comics brought over by US sailors. These comics would greatly influence his later work. Now, keep this in mind because it's going to become very important later. In 1959, he would even officially create a Superman comic made specifically for the Japanese market. Along with Superman, Yoshida was also influenced by Disney films. His career as a manga artist really began to take off in 1954 after moving to Tokyo. His first major success came that same year in the form of a wrestling manga called Iron Arm Rika, which was made in collaboration with the writer Ichi Kajiwara. While Yoshida started out in the manga industry, It's the anime industry where Yoshida's legacy can really be found. In 1962, along with his two brothers Kinji and Toyoharu, they founded the animation studio Tatsunoko Productions. Tatsunoko Productions has gone on to become quite a legendary animation studio. They are responsible, of course, for the Speed Racer anime, along with Ping Pong the Animation, various Gatchaman series, and they provided animation help with Neon Genesis Evangelion. Yoshida left behind quite the legacy beyond just Speed Racer, but unfortunately his life was cut short. In September of 1977, he passed away from liver cancer at the age of 45. Getting back to manga, there is a title from Yoshida that we need to discuss. From 1960 to 1964, he did a series called Pilot Ace. Now, Pilot Ace is interesting because, as you may have already noticed, Pilot Ace looks a lot like Speed Racer. The main character not only looks like Speed, but he's also a race car driver. Well, the reason for all this is because Mach GoGoGo is really just a reworking of Pilot Ace. So, starting off my actual discussion of the manga, I just want to take some time to talk about how amazing my edition of Mach GoGoGo is. It's the 2008 DMP Platinum Edition, and it is an absolutely amazing release. They did just such a fantastic job with the packaging. The manga comes in 2 hardback volumes with nice slipcovers and housed in a beautifully designed slipcase. The paper is of a nice quality, it keeps the original left to right layout, and they even reproduce the original color pages. No expense was spared in making this release, and it's one of the nicest ones in my collection. Now, if we were judging this title based solely off the packaging and its presentation, it would get a 10, but it's what's inside that is more important. The basic overall premise of the manga is it follows a young and up-and-coming race car driver named Speed Racer, who drives a supercar, the Mach 5, which is decked out with various gadgets and abilities. The Mach 5 was designed and created by Speed's father, Pops Racer, who doesn't want Speed to be a racer. Well, it's at least most of the time. The rest of Speed's family includes his younger brother, Sprito Racer, and his pet monkey, Chim Chim. Best character. There's also Rex Racer, Speed's long-lost older brother. His other companions include his girlfriend Trixie, his best friend and personal mechanic Sparky, and finally the mysterious Racer X, who sort of serves as Speed's mentor in the manga. The manga contains 10 stories, 4 of which are major multi-chapters series and 6 single-chapter series. Now let's go through each story and ultimately I'll give my overall thoughts and final rating, and I'll try my best to avoid spoilers. Alright, so if there were 2 words to describe Mach GoGoGo right off the bat, it would be bat shit insane, though it's tamer than the anime. The first story in the series is a 5-chapter arc called The Great Plan. Speed's father, Pops Racer, has designed a new 12-cylinder engine, and he becomes the target of thieves wanting to steal these secret plans. In an attempt to keep his plans hidden, Pops secretly etches them onto a windshield. At the same time this is happening, Speed is getting ready for a race, and he needs a new windshield. You can probably guess what happens next. Speed ends up using this precious windshield on the Mach 5. The thieves realize this and enter the race in order to get those plans. I'll leave the rest for you to discover how it ends. Overall, this story is nothing special. It really serves as an introduction to not just the characters, but the basic concept of the manga. Speed wants to race, Speed ends up in some kind of trouble and has to get out of it while trying to win at the same time. I didn't really enjoy this arc, and it's not a strong start to the manga. The next story is another multi-chapter arc titled Challenge of the Masked Racer. Now, this story is important because it's the introduction to Racer X. Racer X is going to become a very important character as the manga goes on, and it's with this story that things really start to get crazy. In this story, Speed is going to enter into the dangerous Alpine race, along with the mysterious Racer X. But Racer X doesn't want Speed to enter, because there's bound to be many deaths. Speed enters the race anyway, but there's a problem when his father, Pops, realizes that the Mach 5 has old spark plugs, and because of this, Speed's life is in danger? The rest of the story is Speed trying to complete the race, being pitted against other racers, while at the same time Trixie and Sprite try to get these new spark plugs to him. So, like I said, this is where things start to get crazy. There's a gang of racers competing called the Car Aerobics Team, who, first of all, they do this. Then there's like some kind of car cult. Anyway, Speed gets blinded during this race, and Racer X has to help him complete it. There's a lot of death in this chapter. I mean, a lot. Along with all these antics, the Mach 5 also now has jumping abilities, which isn't explained at all. Also, no oil equals explosion. Overall, compared to the last story, this is an improvement, and it really feels like the Speed Racer that I'm familiar with. The Race for Revenge is the first single chapter story in the series. Speed is in a race when all of a sudden a mysterious car shows up. This car belongs to the long dead racer Melange. The car then goes on a killing spree, going after members of the racing board. Speed gets involved after seeing the mysterious car goes by, and tries to chase it down in order to solve this mystery. Speed then learns the story of Melange, and ends up coming into contact with the last living relatives of the racer. So, just who is Melange, and why has this car targeted members of the racing board? Well, I'll leave you to discover that for yourself, but you could probably take a guess. The story again was nothing special, and honestly I found it to be quite boring. I really don't have much to say about the story. Also, Speed? Bro, that's not how prison sentences work. That man is responsible for the death of 2 people. He's going away for a very long time. After 3 pretty mediocre stories, we finally get to the first one that I actually enjoyed, but more so just because of how crazy it was. It's the 3rd multi-chapter story in the series titled The Fire Race. Speed is invited to participate in the fire race that takes place in the remote village of a fictional country of Capitipique. We're going with that, Capitipique. And in this race, Speed will be going up against the mysterious racer Kabbalah. While all this is going on, there is a side plot involving the president of Capitipique and the village elder, where the race is taking place. The village elder rejects modern society, and the president wants to take over the village to preserve it, I think. And so a wager is made between the president and the village elder. Apparently, Kabbalah is the hero of the village, and if he wins the race, the president must promise to not interfere with the village. But if a civilized racer wins, then the president will take control. So the bet is wagered. Speed enters, and he flies out to the village, where we're then introduced to another subplot involving a forced marriage. The chief promises to give his daughter to the winner of the race, and this subplot goes absolutely nowhere. Then another subplot is introduced involving a large hoard of treasure that the villagers have supposedly hidden away. The race starts, and it's through a passage that goes under a volcano that will seal up if the racers aren't fast enough. Once the race begins, Kabbalah starts to play dirty, knocking other racers off the track. Going through the volcano, the other racers discover the treasure and begins to loot it. Then this fucking thing shows up. Like I said, man, this manga is just insane. The volcano passage begins to close, and now it's a race between Speed and Kabbalah to escape. Alright, so, like I said before, I love this story. Just because of how much of an insane, jumbled mess it is. It just keeps adding so much unnecessary elements. It just makes no sense. Why would a village that rejects modern society host an international car race? Why would their village hero be a race car driver? Why is the president so hell bent on conservation? It makes no sense, but I love it. I just loved it. Coming off of that high, we begin Volume 2, which starts with the return of Racer X in the single chapter story titled The True Spirit of a Racer. In the story, Speed is going to participate in the trans-country race with Racer X and another racer named Zoomer Slick, who serves as Speed's arch-nemesis in the story. Pops doesn't want Speed to enter, however, and this is where we learn about Speed's older brother, Rex Racer. Rex was a race car driver as well, and he entered the race without Pops knowing. Rex won the race, but he crashed, causing a fight to break out between Pops and Rex. Rex is upset and leaves the family, never to be seen again. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the character of Pops. Throughout the manga, he constantly flip-flops between being okay with Speed to race and then forbidding him. Also, Pops not wanting Speed to race because he is not experienced enough is the same exact thing that happened with Rex, so it's a bit confusing why Pops would keep making these same mistakes. Anyway, Speed enters a race, and like before, Racer X calls upon him, telling him not to enter because of the danger. In anger, Speed drives off, determined to enter the race anyway, with Racer X in hot pursuit. Speed ends up driving off of the road, knocking himself out. When he wakes up, he finds himself in Racer X's house. Two men then appear, wanting to kidnap Racer X, but ends up grabbing Speed in the confusion. Will Speed be able to make it to the race in time? Will he win? You can probably guess again. The story was very predictable, and overall there was nothing too interesting in this one. So the next story was pretty good, titled The Desperate Desert Race. It's another single chapter story. As usual, Speed enters a dangerous race in another country, but ends up getting involved in, and I kid you not, a military coup. Speed gets framed for blowing up a car of one of the racers, Kim, who just so happens to be the son of a top-ranking general. Wanting to clear his name, Speed goes after Kim, and the two end up starting a new race between just themselves. Yes, another race. Except Speed's got no brakes? While the two are racing, the general's right-hand man attempts a coup and plans to kill Kim. To find out how the story ends, you're just going to have to read it. I enjoyed the story overall. It was simple, the characters were written better, and also vultures. Up next is another single chapter story titled The Secret Engine, and it's basically just a repeat of The Great Plan. There's a crime boss who goes around stealing Model T Fords because apparently Henry Ford had plans for a super engine in one of them. Speed gets involved, however, after he helps an old man fix his Model T, which then gets stolen. Speed helps the old man to get it back. Like the last one, I like the story as well. It's a simple concept. It also has its moments of insanity. The final multi-chapter story in the series is titled The Secret of the Golden Arrow. This was probably my least favorite story of all of them. In it, a new atomic material is stolen from a lab. If this element is not retrieved in time, it will release a deadly gas into the air that will literally kill everyone in the world. The FBI tracks the crime back to a criminal organization called QQQ. QQQ smuggles its goods through a race car driver named Golden Arrow. So the FBI asks Speed to enter a race that the Golden Arrow will be participating in as well. A wrench is thrown into the plan, however, when the Mach 5 gets destroyed, but that doesn't matter much because it quickly gets fixed anyway. However, the Mach 5 is now decked out with a wider range of new gadgets and features. Speed makes it to the race, and the crime boss of QQQ tries his best to stop him. Now, I want to mention this strange scene that occurs before the race where Speed comes across some random old man and a child. The old man, who has never met Speed before, just asks this random stranger to drive this little girl to her mother's house. It was the 60s, I guess. Anyway, it was a setup, but Speed survives. A new character named King who? Oh no. That's that's gonna be a yikes for me. That one just did not age well at all. Anyway, he pops out of nowhere and brings a little girl to the FBI. The race begins, and the usual racing obstacles get in the way. You got the classic desert tornado, which leads into a desert pit. Speed escapes the pit, however, through the power of family. Speed makes it to the hideout of QQQ, and it's revealed here that King Hu was Racer X. Don't know how he pulled that wardrobe change off. A hostage standoff then ensues in the hideout for control of the atomic element. Will the gas be released and QQQ apprehended? Like I said before, this was my least favorite story in the series. Its storytelling was incredibly sloppy, the villain's motives just made no sense, and even though the concept and setup of it was insane, it was just boring. The Black Test Car is a single chapter story, and it's another secret engine type story. That's right, there are some secret engine plans that some criminals want to get hold of. Speed gets involved when his friend, whom we have never met before, is killed while testing out the new engine. The rest of the story is the criminals trying to get the engine designs through sabotage, including at one point getting the company to go out of business in order to buy the engine designs at a cheap price. How will they do this? By getting the workers to go on strike and demand for higher payment. Damn, Yoshida, I didn't know you were anti-workers' rights. The story is not very interesting. It's just a rehash of the Great Plan and the Secret Engine. We finally come to the final story of the original manga, a single chapter story titled Race for Fire Island. The story starts off with an heir to the crown of a small island nation crashing and being unable to participate in the Fire Island race that will confirm his right to the throne of Liberal. Racer X introduces Speed to the prince, who just so happens to look like him. Speed is asked to participate in the prince's place to keep the crown from his evil brother. Speed enters a race in disguise and goes up against fierce competition, including the Reaper, who is hired by the evil brother and his doctor henchman. The race begins and Speed is led into an oil pit that washes all the paint off of the Mach 5. The Reaper then realizes that this is not the prince, and he chases after Speed in order to settle some kind of revenge vendetta that is never really explained. The Reaper catches up with Speed and the two face off, resulting in Speed killing a man with his spare tire. At the same time, the evil brother is double-crossed by his doctor henchman, and the three then confront each other in a temple and another standoff ensues. Will the double-crossing doctor succeed? Again, you can take a guess. Okay, so I'm going to spoil the ending of this story because it is something else. If you don't want to hear it, you can skip to here. From the beginning, Racer X was involved in this story. He was the one that introduced Speed to the prince, but he completely disappears until the very end, where he comes back just to reveal out of nowhere that he is Speed's long-lost brother, Rex Racer, who also happened to be an international spy. And that was it. That was the end of Speed Racer, and oh boy, what an experience. Getting into my final review of the series, I want to start off with the art, which I think is one of the best aspects. The art just screams mid-60s to me, and I adore this kind of aesthetic. The characters look good, and there's not much I can say outside of that. For me, the strongest aspects in Yoshida's art is the detail and attention he puts into drawing cars, planes, urban backgrounds. It's all really good. And it makes sense to have realistic looking cars, because really the cars are the true stars of the show. Now, there are multiple times in the manga where there are very barren backgrounds and some examples of confusing perspective that sort of muddy up the panels, and overall just makes it difficult to understand what is going on. But other than that, the art really is the strongest aspect to the manga. As for the storytelling, it's not good and fluctuates dramatically. Some stories are extremely sloppy, and it feels like shit is just constantly being thrown at the wall in order to fill up pages. New stakes get added in some stories that just are necessary. An egregious example of this would be the Fire Race, in which multiple subplots just keep getting added that go nowhere. Where Speed Racer is at its best is when the story is incredibly simple and it sticks to this simple premise. Stories like The Secret Engine and The Desperate Desert Race. But even then, it's not very good. I found that the stories I did enjoy the most were the ones in which Speed actually wasn't racing and was more like a superhero with a car. I have some thoughts about the characters as well. Characters in the series are very set in stone stereotypes. Speed is the young, hot headed racer who is determined to win and uphold the honor of racing. Racer X was the mysterious character. Sprite and Chim Chim are the comedic relief. And while there's not anything necessarily wrong with that, I just need to talk about the character of Pops, whose traits are always flip flopping. He goes from not wanting Speed to race to being perfectly okay with Speed entering dangerous races all the time. It's just whenever it's most convenient for the story or padding it out. Remember earlier when I said that Yoshida was influenced by early comics like Superman? Well, I think that's the perfect analogy to describe what Mach GoGoGo is. It's like a Golden Age comic book. Golden Age comics are notoriously sloppy in terms of storytelling, and things just happen in them that come out of nowhere and are just there in order to move the story along to get to more action sequences. Mach GoGoGo is a very of its time and dated series. Overall, I feel it's quite mediocre. It does have its highs, however, when things are insane, but outside of that, it can be quite boring. I believe this manga would be very good for a younger preteen audience, and if you enjoy these campy sort of timepieces, then go for it. But outside of that, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to anyone. But I also wouldn't say that was a terrible series. I'm going to give Mach GoGoGo a 6 out of 10. And that's it. That's my review of Mach GoGoGo. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time.